Story 1. Mark moved into my old apartment, creaky floors, a forgotten history. He seemed normal, quiet. I was just relieved to not be alone. This truly happened to me. His initial days were uneventful. We exchanged pleasantries, discussed rent, navigating the usual roommate dance. I barely noticed him, absorbed in my routine. Then subtle changes began. He'd pause mid-sentence, searching for a simple word. I'd catch him staring blankly at the TV. Just New City jitters, I thought. He started mixing up phrases, nonsensical statements sometimes. I attributed it to stress, fatigue from his new job. Everyone gets a little scrambled, right? The blank stares at the television became longer, more frequent. He'd just sit there, unmoving, eyes fixed on nothing. It was unsettling, but I tried to ignore it. A growing unease settled in. It was harder to ignore the way he'd forget common words, even simple ones like door or water. It wasn't normal. I noticed repetitive actions. He'd open and close a cupboard door over and over with a vacant expression. My stomach tightened with a growing dread. Simple tasks became monumental. Tying his shoes, buttering toast, he'd fumble, confused. His movements were becoming less coordinated, more clumsy. His eyes, sometimes they seemed a little empty, devoid of the spark I'd seen when he first arrived. It was like looking into a deep, dark well. I tried to prompt him to help him find the words, but he just blinked or looked through me. There was no recognition, no understanding. A chilling thought began to form. Is something profoundly wrong with him? This wasn't stress. This was something deeper, more insidious. His communication shifted from broken sentences to grunts and gestures. It was like watching someone regress years in a matter of days. I couldn't believe it. He stopped dressing properly. Clothes were askew, sometimes inside out. He seemed indifferent to his appearance, to societal norms. It was terrifying. I found him trying to eat raw food directly from the fridge, a whole block of cheese, a raw carrot. His table manners vanished entirely. This happened to me. His hygiene became non-existent, hair matted, body unwashed. A strange, musky scent began to permeate the apartment. It was deeply unsettling. The animalistic quality in his eyes deepened. They held a vacant intensity, a wildness, less human, more primal. I felt a chill run down my spine. I started seeing him scrambling on all fours occasionally, especially when moving between rooms. A quick, unsettling movement like a predator. The apartment started to smell different, not just the neglect, but a primal scent. Earthy, musky, ancient. It was a smell that didn't belong here. He avoided direct eye contact or, conversely, stared intensely, unblinking. It was one or the other, never a normal glance. It made my skin crawl. I tried to talk sense into him to reach the mark I knew, but there was no response, just grunts, whimpers, or a terrifying blank stare. He was gone. The fear started to build in me, a cold, creeping terror that tightened its grip with each passing hour. I was living with a stranger, a monster. He'd hoard small, random objects in corners of the apartment. Shiny things, bits of string, crumpled paper, like a magpie or something more primitive. Strange noises emanated from his room at night. Scratches, clicks, low, guttural sounds. I'd lie awake, paralyzed, listening to the horror unfold. The apartment no longer felt safe. It felt like a trap, a shared prison. Every creak, every shadow filled me with dread. I was a prisoner here. My attempts to help were met with snarls, primal, guttural snarls that made my blood run cold. He was defending himself like a territorial animal. Or terrified whimpers like a cornered beast. He'd cower, trembling if I approached too quickly. The fear in his eyes was palpable and contagious. He recoiled from my touch, from any human contact. It was as if my presence, my humanity, repulsed him. I was a threat, not a friend. The apartment became a cage for both of us. I was trapped inside with something that was rapidly losing all semblance of humanity. I'll never forget that. I was living with someone who was becoming primal, unsettling. A creature, not a man. The transformation was agonizingly slow, yet terrifyingly complete. I was trapped watching this horrifying transformation, helpless. Every day, a little more of Mark was gone, replaced by something ancient and unknown. My phone calls for help felt useless. Who would believe such a story? A roommate unlearning humanity. They'd think I was crazy or worse. The horror was isolating me completely. I couldn't tell anyone. I was alone in this nightmare with no escape, no one to confide in. One night, a guttural growl woke me. It wasn't human. It was deep, primal, echoing from the living room. My heart hammered in my chest. I crept out of my room, heart pounding against my ribs. The air was thick with that musky scent. The living room was bathed in eerie moonlight. There he was, Mark, on all fours in the living room, his back to me. A sickening crunch echoed in the silence. This image is burned into my mind. He was gnawing on a discarded book, its spine broken, pages torn. He wasn't reading it, he was consuming it. The sound was grotesque. His body was unnaturally contorted, limbs bent at odd angles. His skin looked rough, ancient, almost scaly in the dim light. He was transforming. He turned his head slowly. His eyes met mine. There was no recognition, no flicker of the Mark I knew, only a terrifying, primeval hunger. I realized he wasn't sick. This wasn't an illness. He was unlearning everything, regressing, becoming something ancient, something monstrous. The apartment was our shared tomb. I was trapped with a being that was shedding its humanity, becoming something forgotten, something truly terrifying. I backed away slowly, silently. Every muscle screamed. I had to get back to my room, lock the door, my only sanctuary. I barricaded myself in my room, pushing my dresser against the door. The thud of wood against wood echoed, but I didn't care. I needed safety. From the other side of the door, I heard it, the scratching, the clicks, the low, guttural growls. They were closer now, more persistent. I still live here, a prisoner in my own home, forever haunted by the presence of the unlearning roommate. My life is a constant vigil. I wonder if anyone would ever believe me, or if they'd just find me, eventually, another casualty of this silent, horrifying transformation. The sounds are constant now, a rhythmic scratching, sometimes a low moan. It's a lullaby of dread, my constant companion in this nightmare. The apartment breathes with a new, ancient life. It's no longer my home. Its asterisk is asterisk territory now, and I am just an intruder, waiting. I ration my food, my water. Every trip to the kitchen is a terrifying gamble. The air is always heavy with that musky, primal scent. Sometimes I hear a new sound, a soft, wet thud, followed by silence. A chilling silence that speaks of something unspeakable evolving. I am waiting for the silence to break, for the scratching to stop, or for the door to finally give way. Am I next, I wonder? Story 2, this happened to me. Alex, my roommate, was always quiet. Our shared college apartment was typical, a comfortable mess of textbooks and takeout. He kept to himself, and I respected his space. One morning, I found the first note on the fridge. It was a single, neatly printed word. Wait. I chuckled, thinking it was Alex's quirky way of reminding me about something, just eccentric. A few days later, another appeared. Listen. This one was taped to the microwave. It was a bit stranger, but still, I dismissed it as harmless oddity. Alex had a unique sense of humor, perhaps. The notes started becoming more frequent, sometimes daily, sometimes every other day. Always concise, always a single, unusual word or a short, disjointed phrase. I began to notice a pattern. I tried to bring it up once during dinner. "Hey, what's with all the notes?" Alex just shrugged, eyes fixed on his plate. "Just thoughts," he mumbled, his voice unusually flat. I let it go. The early notes were mostly just random words, seemingly without any real meaning. Shadows, breath, empty, they felt like abstract poetry if Alex was into that sort of thing. Initially, I found it almost endearing. Alex, my quiet, studious roommate, had this quirky little habit. It made him a bit more interesting, a splash of color in our otherwise mundane routine. But then the notes became less coherent. They were still single words, but strung together in ways that felt off like a broken sentence. See him, not here, lost, a subtle shift. One morning, I found a note with a strange symbol alongside the words. It looked like a distorted eye, drawn crudely but with an unsettling precision. That was the first true flicker of unease. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe Alex was experimenting with art or studying some obscure language. Still, a faint, persistent unease began to settle in, a feeling I couldn't quite shake. The notes moved beyond the fridge. I found one on my desk, tucked under my laptop. IT knows. My heart gave a little jump. This wasn't just Alex's fridge art anymore, it was personal. Later, I found another wedged into one of my textbooks, specifically on a page about abnormal psychology. His whispers. A chill ran down my spine. The placement felt deliberate, targeted. The symbols became more complex and started recurring. The distorted eye, a jagged line, a spiral. They felt ancient, unsettling, like something I shouldn't be seeing. They were everywhere. Phrases like "he watches" and "it sees" began to appear, not just on the notes, but sometimes scrawled on a steamy mirror after a shower or faintly on a dusty windowsill. It felt like surveillance. I tried to ignore the growing strangeness, to convince myself it was just Alex's elaborate prank. But the feeling of being constantly observed was becoming harder and harder to shake. The notes now explicitly hinted at a presence in the apartment. "Not alone, IT is here, breathing." My logical mind struggled, but my gut screamed. Something was profoundly wrong. A pervasive sense of being watched started to creep into every corner of our shared space. I'd turned suddenly, convinced I'd seen something in my peripheral vision, but there was never anything. I attributed it to stress, to overthinking. College was demanding, and maybe Alex's weirdness was just getting to me. I tried to focus on my studies, but the notes were a constant, nagging dread. Those symbols especially, they weren't just random doodles. They felt deliberate, charged with a strange energy. I started seeing them in my dreams, twisting and morphing into menacing shapes. The sheer volume of notes was becoming overwhelming. They were tucked everywhere, a paper trail of increasing madness. It felt like the apartment itself was screaming through Alex's hand. I finally confronted Alex more directly. "Are you okay? What are these?" I held up a note with a new, disturbing symbol. He flinched as if the light hurt him and backed away slowly. He was withdrawn, distant. His eyes, once bright, now seemed clouded, unfocused. He avoided my gaze, muttering replies that made no sense. It was like talking to a ghost inhabiting his body. Sometimes I'd catch him staring blankly at empty corners of the apartment, his head cocked slightly, as if listening to something I couldn't hear. His behavior was becoming genuinely frightening. Then came the note that truly terrified me. It mentioned a specific, unique item on my desk, a small, painted rock from my hometown. "Your rock, he sees IT." Only I knew about that rock. The entity wasn't just observing Alex, it was observing *me*. It had access to my private space, my personal belongings, my very thoughts. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Alex seemed to be losing weight, his clothes hanging off his frame. His skin was sallow, his eyes sunken. He looked like a shadow of his former self, fading away before my very eyes. A note appeared on my laptop screen, stuck with tape. It detailed a private thought I'd had just hours earlier, a fleeting worry about an upcoming exam. My blood ran cold. This was impossible. A growing, horrifying fear solidified. Alex wasn't just Alex anymore. Something else had taken root, something malevolent, using him as a conduit. His essence felt diminished, replaced. The notes were now clearly directed at me, warnings disguised as threats or threats disguised as warnings. He wants your light, one read taped to my bedroom door. He is hungry. I felt a chilling sense of invasion, of my personal space and mind being meticulously dissected. Every shadow felt like a lurking presence, every creak of the building, a watchful eye. Small, unsettling things started happening in my room. My alarm clock was turned to face the wall. My favorite mug was on the floor, unbroken, subtle but unnerving, deliberate. I started hearing faint whispers when I was alone, just at the edge of hearing. A low, guttural murmur that seemed to coil around me, yet vanished the moment I tried to pinpoint it. A specific cold spot materialized in the hallway right outside my bedroom door. It wasn't a draft. It was an unnatural, piercing chill that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. I checked the locks obsessively, double-checking windows, feeling an irrational paranoia that was rapidly becoming rational. This wasn't just Alex's eccentricity. This was something else entirely. The whispers seemed to form words now, just out of reach, like sounds heard underwater. My name, sometimes, a guttural growl that promised something terrible. I knew I wasn't imagining it. Sleep became impossible. Every shadow danced with unseen shapes, every creak of the old building, a deliberate step. I was constantly on edge, my nerves frayed, my mind racing. The cold spot moved. It wasn't just in the hallway anymore. It followed me, a pocket of unnatural chill that would appear behind me, beside me, making me gasp and spin around. The horrifying realization hit me with full force. This wasn't Alex's odd humor. This was real. A malevolent entity had claimed his mind and was now actively trying to communicate with me. I started researching local folklore, trying to find anything that matched the symbols, the whispers, the cold. I pored over old texts, desperate for an answer, a name, a weakness. Fear had morphed into a desperate, primal need for answers. I needed to understand what was happening, not just for my own sanity, but for Alex, or what was left of him. Then one morning I found it, a note on my pillow, placed so delicately, so intentionally that it sent a fresh wave of dread through me. It was the final, chilling message. The handwriting was Alex's, unmistakably, but it felt wrong, distorted, like a mockery of his neat penmanship. The ink seemed darker, almost bleeding into the paper. It was alien. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. The words were stark, direct. "He's watching you, he wants you." My breath hitched. This wasn't a warning from Alex. It was Alex trying to warn me. Below that, scrawled almost frantically, were 3 more words. "Alex is gone." Pure, unadulterated terror flooded me. My roommate, my friend, was gone, replaced, possessed. My heart pounded in my ears. I rushed to Alex's room, a desperate, irrational hope that I could still reach him, that he wasn't truly gone. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness. He was there, sitting on his bed, staring blankly at the far wall. He was muttering, a low, guttural drone of incomprehensible syllables. His eyes were wide, but saw nothing. I tried to reach him, to touch his shoulder, to shake him awake from whatever nightmare held him. "Alex," I whispered, my voice barely a tremor. He didn't respond, just kept muttering. Then slowly he turned his head, his eyes, empty and devoid of warmth, fixed on me, and a voice, deep and resonant, utterly unlike Alex's, spoke from his lips. "You're next." I screamed, a raw, guttural sound torn from my throat. I stumbled backward, falling, then scrambled to my feet and fled. I called 911, my voice shaking, barely coherent. Alex was taken away, diagnosed with a severe mental break. I moved out that day, abandoning everything. I'll never forget that night, but the horror wasn't over. A week later, on my new apartment's door was the distorted eye symbol. It followed me, it's still watching. This happened to me, it's still happening. Story 3. My best friend Alex and I shared an apartment. Life was normal until he started talking to Sam, an imaginary friend. I dismissed it as a coping mechanism. This happened to me. Sam says you're hogging the remote, Alex chuckled, looking at empty space. I brushed it off. We'd always had an imaginative streak. Conversations grew. Alex spent hours murmuring to Sam in his room. I heard snippets, odd advice. It felt peculiar, but I dismissed it. My keys vanished, Alex, without looking up, said. Sam put them under your pillow. My blood ran cold. How could he know? I found them there. A chill ran down my spine. Was it a prank? It felt too specific to be harmless. Alex later said, Sam thinks your new date is a jerk. I hadn't mentioned the date. How did Sam know something so private? I confronted Alex, trembling. How did Sam know? He insisted. Sam just told me. His sincerity unnerved me more. The line between Alex and Sam blurred. Alex constantly quoted Sam. I started feeling watched, even when alone. I suggested therapy. Sam doesn't like that, Alex snapped, eyes flashing. You're trying to get rid of him. This wasn't Alex. He withdrew, focused on Sam. Our banter ceased. I felt a growing sense of isolation. My favorite mug moved from the coffee table to the bookshelf. Sam's being playful, Alex said. I knew I hadn't moved it. Whispers began, faint, almost imperceptible. My name, a mocking chuckle. I'd whip my head around, finding nothing. It made my skin crawl. Lights flickered regularly. Alex blamed wiring. Sam's just excited, he'd say with a strange glint. I knew it was more. I felt distinct cold spots, usually near Alex. A bone-chilling cold, defying the thermostat. My phone rang, unknown caller. Only static, sometimes a distorted backward voice, pure psychological torture. Alex seemed oblivious. He'd laugh. Sam thinks you're overdramatic. I felt targeted, losing my mind. One night, my bedroom door slowly creaked open. I froze. Nothing visible, but ozone filled the air. Something passed through. I slept with a light on. Whispers grew clearer, taunting my insecurities. Sam knew too much. I tried reasoning with Alex. He stared, hollow-eyed. Sam doesn't like you upsetting me, he said flatly. The apartment felt suffocating. Every shadow held a presence. I was trapped with Alex and his malevolent friend. My toothbrush reappeared in the freezer. My sweater, shredded, not pranks, petty, malicious acts designed to unnerve. Sleep was a luxury. I'd wake to being watched, a cold breath, sometimes an invisible weight on my chest. Alex deteriorated, losing weight, pale, dark circles. He spent all his time with Sam, utterly drained. I found him rocking, whispering intensely to a corner, arguing, appeasing, apologizing, a disturbing performance. Sam's just hungry, Alex murmured. He needs more attention. His tone, excusing a demanding child, sent shivers. I tried making him eat to leave. He refused, agitated. Sam says we can't leave, he stated, voice flat. He was a puppet. My personal space was constantly invaded, items rearranged, my diary open. Sam was always watching. Whispers escalated to threats. He knows your fears, a voice hissed. He likes to watch you squirm, a tangible presence. Alex drew energy from my fear. The more terrified, the more alert he seemed, a faint smirk. He was complicit. I barricaded my bedroom door nightly, a futile attempt, but it offered a sliver of false security. Cold spots intensified, an icy grip on my arm, a deep chill to my bones centered on my back. Something was behind me. Alex's voice changed, raspy, deeper, with an odd cadence. It was Sam speaking through him, horrifying. One evening, Alex's gaze was fixed, head tilted, responding to a specific point in the air, not empty space anymore. I could feel Sam's weight. The air grew heavy, thick with unseen energy, like walking through water. Alex stopped eating. He just sat, staring, whispering, wasting away. My best friend was disappearing. I tried reaching his family, friends. Alex had subtly isolated himself. Sam had cut off his connections. The entity projected images into my mind, terrifying glimpses, shadows, distorted faces, decay, a psychic assault. One night, a profound, oppressive stillness. The air was frigid, colder than usual. I crept out, drawn by an unnatural hum from Alex's door. A pale light pulsed beneath it. My heart hammered. This was it. I pushed his door open, the room bathed in ethereal blue. Alex stood rigid, eyes closed, trance-like. The cold was unbearable. Then I saw it, a swirling, indistinct shadow coalescing beside Alex. Taller, darker, a void. It was Sam. Not just a shadow, it had depth, a terrifying presence. It pulsed, a silent thrum of malevolence. A voice echoed in my mind. He was a good host, it hissed, but you are stronger. It revealed its nature, parasitic, feeding on Alex's life force. It had prepared Alex as a vessel for me. Pure terror washed over me, a psychic blast tearing my brain apart. I stumbled backward, gasping. I couldn't save Alex, he was consumed. My only chance was to run, escape this horror. I scrambled up, legs like jelly, and bolted. The apartment stretched, walls closing, whispers chasing me. I burst through the front door, not locking it, and ran into the night. The cold air was a shock, the horror inside, far worse. I never returned. Alex was found catatonic or vanished. Details are hazy, I don't want to know. Shattered, every shadow, whisper, cold spot sends me into panic. The entity is out there, searching. It could be watching me now. Story 4. Moving into my new city apartment, I felt excited. A fresh start. My roommate Alex seemed quiet and harmless. This happened to me. Our initial interactions were brief, polite. He mostly stayed in his room. I dismissed it as new roommate awkwardness, focusing on unpacking. Weeks passed. Alex was always here, morning, noon, night, always in the apartment. His constant presence felt subtly unsettling. I'd leave for work, return, he'd be there. Weekends, same, no job, errands, or social life, just present. It was odd. I tried to rationalize remote work, night shift, but no signs of him leaving or returning. No sounds, no keys, just silence. The pattern was undeniable. Alex was always awake, silently in the living room or kitchen, always the first I saw. Returning home, I longed for solitude, but Alex was invariably there, a quiet fixture. His constant presence felt heavy. Weekends offered no reprieve. I'd plan outings, hoping for an empty apartment, but Alex was always there upon my return. I dismissed him as a homebody, a recluse, but this felt unnatural, more like a perpetual shadow than introversion. He never grocery shopped, no bags, no trips. Where did his food come from? I never saw him cook anything substantial. No friends visited him, no calls, invitations, or social media. He seemed utterly disconnected from the outside world. My active life contrasted starkly. His existence revolved entirely around our apartment. He was confined, and so was my peace. A subconscious awareness of his constant presence festered, a low hum of unease always in the background like a faulty appliance. Rationalizing again, severe social anxiety, a unique job, explanations felt hollow, failing to quell my apprehension. The pattern was undeniable. Alex never left. The apartment was his entire world, and by extension, he was mine. I casually inquired one evening, "So, Alex, what exactly do you do?" I tried to sound nonchalant while prepping dinner. He mumbled vaguely about remote work, flexible hours. His eyes darted away, a clear dismissal. My gut twisted. "Another attempt? Any interesting hobbies?" He curtly replied, "Not really." The conversation died as always. His evasiveness was palpable, a thick curtain around his life, not shyness but deliberate withholding. I grew suspicious. Then the feeling started, constant, unsettling presence, like being watched even when Alex wasn't in the room. I'd turn suddenly, convinced I felt eyes, only to find an empty hallway, but the prickle on my neck persisted. Sometimes I'd round a corner, he'd be there still, watching the wall. His silence deafened, his presence a heavy weight. The apartment felt smaller, air thicker, every shadow held his gaze. I felt trapped not just by Alex but the space. I started checking locks, double-checking windows, a desperate, irrational attempt to secure myself, but the threat was inside. Unease grew into fear. I lived with a phantom, a living statue whose silent scrutiny chipped away at my sanity. Then small, unexplainable events. My bedroom door, firmly closed, would be ajar minutes later. I knew I hadn't left it open. My keys, always on the hook, sometimes appeared on the counter. A book moved, subtle, unnerving shifts. Faint, inexplicable noises began at odd hours, scraping from walls, whisper-like sighs when no one was near, or so I thought. I blamed Alex, but he was always still, or building settling, my imagination. I tried to rationalize everything. One night, my phone, charging on the nightstand, was found across the room. Charger taut, this wasn't Alex. My observation of Alex intensified. I watched him like a hawk, every movement, every stillness, he never left. I set traps, a hair on the door jamb, a precarious item, always undisturbed. He was always there, the apartment, his cage. Then I saw it. One evening, Alex stared blankly at the front door. He was absolutely motionless, lost in thought. His face, usually impassive, was contorted with profound despair. Eyes vacant, hollow, fixed on the door, longing for escape. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a homebody. This was a man imprisoned. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. Late one night, Alex appeared in the kitchen, eyes wide with terror, body trembling, a cornered animal. "I can't leave," he whispered, hoarse. Something won't let me." His words hung heavy in the suffocating air. He'd been trapped for months, he explained. An unseen force, a pervasive presence, held him captive here. My heart pounded. Panicked, I tried to help. We rushed to the front door, a desperate hope igniting. I grabbed the handle. As I approached, an intense physical pressure pushed back. The air thickened, heavy, like wading through molasses, cold dread. Not imagination, a palpable, invisible wall pressed against us, growing stronger, suffocating. Escape was impossible. The apartment reacted. Lights flickered violently, plunging us into darkness, then a sickly, pulsing glow. Shadows writhed on walls, stretching, contracting, forming grotesque shapes. They mocked our struggle. The air grew colder. Alex, screaming, was violently thrown back from the door. He slammed into the wall, collapsing in a heap. The entity was real, not a feeling, but a physical, malevolent presence. It claimed this apartment and now us. I felt the same invisible grip, an icy dread. A crushing weight settled on my chest, pinning me. The sickening clarity hit. The entity wasn't just holding Alex. Its reach extended. It had claimed me too. No escape, no hope. We were both prisoners now, trapped in this malevolent space. The outside world, a dream. Slowly, we succumbed to its pervasive influence. The apartment hums with an unseen, predatory life feeding on our despair. The ever-present roommate was never Alex, it was the apartment itself, and now it has us both, forever. Story 5. I remember the day Mark moved in. He seemed quiet, a bit reserved, but perfectly normal, just another guy looking for a cheap room. I had no idea my life was about to be slowly siphoned away. He was just a tenant, I thought, like any other. We exchanged pleasantries, discussed rent, and he settled into the spare bedroom. My home felt no different, not yet. This happened to me slowly, insidiously. At first, it was just minor fatigue. I blamed my long work hours at the cafe, those late-night study sessions for my online courses. Everyone gets tired, right? I tried to rationalize it away. But the constant exhaustion, even after a full night's sleep, became a disturbing new normal. I'd wake up feeling as if I hadn't slept at all. It was a profound, bone-deep weariness. My energy levels plummeted. Simple tasks felt monumental. I started skipping gym sessions, canceling plans. My once vibrant life was slowly dimming. This wasn't normal for me. Then came the persistent, dull headaches. They weren't migraines, just a constant pressure behind my eyes, a low throb that never truly went away. It felt like my brain was shrinking. The constant colds followed. I used to have an iron constitution, rarely ever getting sick. Now it felt like I was perpetually fighting off some invisible illness, always sniffly or coughing. And then the strange fog in my brain. It was like a thick veil had descended, making clear thought almost impossible. My thoughts felt sluggish, distant, not my own. I'd forget simple things, where I put my keys, what I was about to say. It was alarming. My once sharp memory, something I prided myself on, was failing me completely. Mid-sentence, my train of thought would derail. I'd just stop, blank, searching for words that simply weren't there. Conversations became frustrating, embarrassing exercises in futility. My friends started noticing. "Are you okay?" they'd ask, their concern palpable. I'd brush it off, blaming stress, but deep down I knew something was terribly wrong. This wasn't just stress. While I withered, Mark seemed to bloom. It was an unsettling contrast, a stark, undeniable difference. He was more vibrant, his skin glowing, his posture straighter. His eyes, once reserved, were brighter, almost sparkling with an unnerving intensity. There was a lightness to his step, a newfound energy that seemed to radiate from him. The more I faded, the more he flourished. It was like watching a plant drain another of its nutrients. A dark suspicion began to fester in my mind, a terrifying thought I couldn't shake. Was his newfound energy coming from me? The idea was absurd, monstrous, but it clung to me. It felt like a cold, slimy whisper in the back of my increasingly muddled brain. I started noticing things about Mark, small details that in isolation meant nothing but together formed a chilling pattern. My paranoia grew with each passing day. He rarely ate. I'd barely ever see him prepare food or even bring groceries home. Yet he never seemed hungry, never complained. It was unnatural, unsettling. He was always in the common areas when I felt my weakest. If I came out of my room feeling utterly depleted, there he'd be, reading or just sitting silently, watching. A subtle, almost imperceptible presence, yet it became suffocating, like a shadow that followed me, growing darker as I grew lighter. I felt constantly observed, hunted. My once comforting home now felt like a predatory cage. The walls seemed to close in, the air grew heavy, thick with an unspoken threat. I was trapped and he was the keeper. I started locking my bedroom door at night, a futile gesture, I knew, but it offered a sliver of false security. Every creak, every rustle sent shivers down my spine. Sleep became a battle. I feared closing my eyes, fearing what might happen while I was vulnerable. The fatigue was overwhelming, yet sleep offered no respite, only dread. My reflection in the mirror was alarming. Gaunt cheeks, sunken eyes, skin pale and almost translucent. I barely recognized the person staring back at me. I was a ghost of myself. Mark, meanwhile, was thriving. He'd hum sometimes, a low, melodic tune that grated on my nerves. His steps were energetic, his voice clearer, almost resonant. He was feeding. I tried to confront him once to ask about his strange habits, but the words caught in my throat. His gaze, though not overtly hostile, felt ancient, powerful, and utterly unyielding. It was a look that promised no answers, only a cold, silent understanding of the transaction taking place. He knew what he was doing, and he knew I knew. My will was eroding, my spirit dimming. I felt like a battery slowly losing its charge, and Mark was the device drawing every last volt. I was becoming nothing. One night, I woke up feeling utterly drained, barely able to move. It was worse than any night before. A heavy, suffocating weight pressed down on me, paralyzing me. The air in my room was thick, colder than usual. My heart hammered against my ribs, but my body felt like lead. I couldn't even lift a finger. Then I saw him, Mark, standing over my bed, a silent, unmoving sentinel in the gloom. My breath hitched in my throat. This wasn't a dream. This was real. A faint, almost shimmering aura surrounded him, a subtle distortion in the air around his form. It pulsed, faintly, like a hungry heartbeat. My blood ran cold. And then I felt it, a palpable sense of something being drawn from me, a vital essence, a warmth, a life force flowing out of my body and towards him. I was being emptied. His eyes met mine. There was no malice there, no anger, no hatred, just a cold, ancient hunger. The hunger of something primordial, something that simply consumed to exist. It was the look of a predator finally claiming its prey. I was not a person to him, merely sustenance, a resource to be depleted until nothing remained. Panic, raw and primal, surged through my veins. I mustered every ounce of my remaining will, a desperate, fading spark of defiance. I had to break free. With a guttural cry, I screamed at him, get out of my room." My voice was weak, hoarse, but it was a scream nonetheless. It was a desperate plea for survival. He didn't move, he didn't flinch, he just stood there, his eyes still fixed on mine, and then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. It was not a human smile. It was a slow, predatory grin, a silent promise of my complete consumption. A chilling certainty that he would finish what he started and there was nothing I could do. But that smile, that predatory grin, ignited a furious, desperate surge of adrenaline. I would not be his meal. I would not let him take everything. With a strength I didn't know I possessed, I somehow dragged myself out of the bed, away from his presence, away from the draining sensation. Every muscle screamed in protest. I stumbled towards the door, my legs barely supporting me. The terrifying truth solidified with every agonizing step. He wasn't just a bad roommate, he was something else entirely. I fumbled with the lock, my fingers numb and clumsy. The click echoed like a gunshot in the silent apartment. I burst out of the room, leaving him behind. I ran out of the apartment, down the stairs, into the cool night air. I didn't look back. I just ran, fueled by pure terror, until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. I never went back to that apartment, not for my belongings, not for anything. The thought of stepping foot in that place again filled me with unbearable dread. My health slowly, agonizingly improved. The headaches faded, the colds became less frequent, the brain fog lifted, but I was changed, scarred by the experience. I carry the scars, the constant vigilance, the lingering fear that such an entity could exist, that I was merely its sustenance, a fleeting meal for something ancient and cruel. I often wonder if Mark found a new host, another unsuspecting soul looking for a cheap room. Is he still out there, forever draining the life from others? The thought sends a chill down my spine, a cold reminder that some horrors don't end. They just move on to the next victim, and I was lucky to escape. I still check my locks, double-check my windows. Every new person I meet, I scrutinize, searching for that subtle, unsettling stillness, that cold, ancient hunger. Because I know now with absolute certainty that some monsters don't hide under the bed. They move in next door, and they feed on your very life force.